welcome everyone to the Purple People Podcast schedule release show. Tonight we are going to break down the entire 2012 Minnesota Vikings regular season schedule and predict all of the team's wins and losses, hopefully providing some Vikings keys to victory along the way, as well as determining what we must do to avoid a repeat of last season's 3-win disaster. I am Kyle West, and I could not be more excited for this season to get underway. And alongside me, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, Adam Carlson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Once again, I'd like to invite you to join us on Facebook and Twitter. That's where all the conversations happen, so that's where you should be. All right, where should we start today, King Kyle?
Well, we need to start in week 1 of the regular season, September.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah, September 9th, we got a home game against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Sure do.
What do you think, Adam? Win or a loss to open the season?
I think the Vikings will win this one. Maurice Jones-Drew and Adrian Peterson are kind of going to cancel each other out in limited roles, if they even really play much at all. Then it's down to Ponder and Gabbert against the Ds. I don't know. To me, I can't in good faith say that I'm willing to say that Blaine Gabbert can come in and win a game. I'm not willing to do that. So I'm starting the Vikings out 1-0. What do you have?
I've got a win for us too, because folks, if we cannot win against Jacksonville, we are in for a long, long season. I think our defense is going to play pretty well. They're going to be all up on Blaine Gabbert, and that should get us off to a 1-0 start. Okay, week 2, September 16th, is an away game versus the Indianapolis Colts. You got a win or a loss for us, Adam?
Well, this game's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. The Vikings will end up winning. I'm not sold at all on the Colts defense this year. They had to mortgage a lot of guys to make room for the salary cap and everything. But it's good news for the Vikings offense because they have another game to try to get things together and mesh. The Colts have a rookie quarterback and a running back that on most teams would be a backup. So just for those reasons alone, I have to go for Minnesota. That means they start the season 2-0.
I've got the win for us too. I agree with you. I think Andrew Luck is going to make this game a lot closer than what people are going to want to give the Colts credit for right now. You look on paper, and believe it or not, I think the teams actually match up with one another pretty good. So it could go either way, although I'm going to give this one to Minnesota because I believe that, we should be a better team than the Colts. So
I agree.
Yep. Week 3, September 29th, we have a home game against the San Francisco Randy Mosses. Now, I'm kidding. It's against the 49ers. Win or a loss? What do you think?
Sorry, but the 49ers are just too good of an all-around team. This is a loss right here. Although opening the season 2-1 isn't so bad.
Yeah, I got a loss for us too. We're rebuilding mode right now. We're not going to beat the 49ers. Week number 4, September 30th, we have an away game versus the Detroit Lions. And this is the game that Jerome Simpson will finally be eligible to play for the Minnesota Vikings. For this one, I have a loss for Minnesota. I think it'll be a close game. It'll be good to have Jerome back on the field, but I think it'll take him possibly a game or two to get back into step. And I'm going to say that being away, it's a home game for Detroit. We won't be able to come away with the win.
Yeah, I know earlier in the season I said that I thought the Vikings could sweep the Lions. I think this game will come down to who's healthy and who isn't. The Lions' secondary is just as questionable as the Vikings, but the Lions have that much more refined offense. Sadly, I'll pick the Lions on this one. Vikings drop to 2-2.
Week number 5, October 7th, we have a home game against the Tennessee Titans. Win or a loss?
The big story here is going to be Jake Locker against Christian Ponder. Many people think that the Vikings were targeting Jake Locker in the draft. We'll never find out, but it's fun to think about. I do think the Vikings steal this one if they can contain Chris Johnson. Vikings 3-2.
I'm going to go for a loss in this game. I don't think that Chris Johnson, the Vikings, will be able to fully stop him. We've seen in preseason, and I realize it's been against some of the backup players that we've had that have had problems containing the run. but it's going to be a good test. I don't think Minnesota will be able to do it. I think the Titans are going to be a better team than what people are predicting as well. And that brings us to week number 6, October 14th, away versus the Washington Redskins. Can the Minnesota Vikings contain RG3? I'm going to say no. I'm actually going to say that RG3 is going to, they're going to beat us. So I've got a loss in that game.
Well, this is a big-time momentum game right here. Hopefully they're coming off a big win against the Titans, and they're going into Washington. Again, it's two young quarterbacks battling. This one I'm going to go with my guts and say that the Vikings pull this one off. I'm going for them to be 4-2 going into week 7.
See, I think RG3 is going to just make the Vikings look like a bunch of fools in this game. And I hate to say that, but he's got that ability to move outside the pocket and scramble, and that is just going to it's gonna hurt us, folks. And I think
I don't think Washington will be able to do that until they improve on the weapons around him. Right now they've got a running back by committee with 4 guys who you can throw names and hats, and any one of them could be the starter. And I'm not saying that is a good thing either. I'm just saying that they have such a cloud there. Then their wide receivers, they got Santana Moss, who's aging. They got young Leonard Hankerson. He's probably the best guy they've got. I don't know. I'm just not sold on the weapons around him right now. I like RG3. I like what he brings to the table, but I don't think they have enough for him.
Well, I think, and then we'll move on here, I think that RG3 is one of those players that elevates everyone around him to play at a higher and a better level. So I think that, you can kind of look at them right now and say maybe they don't have all the weapons, but just having him on the field is going to bring that extra little bit of oomph to the Washington's offense. Week number 7, October 21st, we have a home game against the Arizona Cardinals, and we are going to win because who is their starting quarterback?
As of right now, John Skelton.
Who will it be come week number 7? We have no idea, folks. It could be Tavares Jackson. It could be Kevin Cobb. It could be Sage Rosenfels. It could be Brett Favre. Who knows what they're going to do? Maybe they get Kurt Warner out of retirement. I don't think it matters. We're going to win because we need a win at this point in the season according to my win-loss record, and Arizona is going to be the team that we're going to do it against.
It's a shame because Arizona actually isn't a bad team.
Yes, they are.
They're fun to watch. They're exciting, but they just don't have the quarterback play.
Larry Fitzgerald
is fun to watch. Right now, I don't. Oh, Larry Fitzgerald's fun to watch. Yeah, without a doubt.
The Cardinals are not fun to watch. Larry Fitzgerald is.
Oh, I don't know. Patrick Peterson, he can excite a game real fast, especially with those returns. But the Cardinals have too many problems on offense. Their running back staying healthy and the quarterback situation. I'm going with the win for the Vikings, 5-2 going into week 8.
Which brings us to, like you say, week 8, October 25th. We have a home game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Thursday night football.
Thursday night football. This is also the NFL trade deadline. So keep that in mind. I think we got the win against the Bucs. I'm giving us home field advantage for this one. That's kind of my reason for the win.
Now, the Vikings are feeling good coming in at 5-2, but the schedule just got a ton harder. Tampa isn't the pushovers they used to be. They built up a lot of their talent through free agency and the draft, and they're going to be a lot tougher team than people think. They're going to come in here, they're going to beat the Vikings, and leave 5-3. The Vikings will.
See, I am hoping that Chris Cook is going to match up against Vincent Jackson and take him out of the game, and that combined with home field advantage, I think is what's going to give us the win.
But then you have Winfield matched up against Mike Williams. I don't like that matchup.
Well, I guess we shall see. Week number 9, October 4th, we are away versus the Seattle Sea Vikings because they are Minnesota Vikings numero uno out there.
They do like guys that used to wear purple.
Yes, they do. We got the win. in this one. I realize it's an away game. That is a tough stadium to play in, but I think we're going to go ahead and pick up the win.
Now, there's a reason why teams are afraid to go into Seattle. For some reason, that home field advantage is huge. The stadium's loud. It's almost like having an extra guy on the field, is what I hear. Now, they do have one of the best running backs in the league in Marshawn Lynch. He's underrated, and you don't hear a ton about him. His face isn't all over in the media, but he is that good. And the defense is that good too. That secondary is improving. The Vikings lose again, 5-4.
And if Sidney Rice is healthy, and Vikings fans, we know we've said that plenty of times in the past, but if Sidney Rice is healthy, you know that he can be quite a threat on the field. So
when he's healthy, he's a game changer, no doubt.
Yep. So the game is dependent a bit on him as well.
But they also brought in guys like Doug Baldwin, and I know it's another name that people haven't heard a lot of. Those guys in Seattle don't get a lot of media attention, but there is talent on that team.
Yes, there is. Week number 10, that is November 11th, we have a home game against the Detroit Lions. I call this one a coin flip game because I believe that there are certain games, if we come out to a really good start, we can contend and possibly get the win. If we come out and if we just play like crap from the beginning of it, we're not going to be able to recover from it. This game, being a home game against the Lions, is going to be a coin flip 50-50 game. But I'm going to go ahead and say that the Vikings are going to get the win, home field advantage against the Detroit Lions.
Lions in Minnesota? No, only in the zoo. The Vikings surprise a lot of people and win a squeaker in front of their hometown crowd. It might only be by a field goal or maybe a touchdown. It's going to be a close, hotly contested game. But I do believe the Vikings beat the Lions in Minnesota and move on to be 6-4.
Week 11, this is our bye week, and this is the period where our schedule gets really, really tough. From this point on, wins and losses are going to be hard to come by, so this is a really good time for us to have a week off. And this is going to lead us into week number 12. November 25th, we have an away game against the Chicago Bears, and the start of our losing period begins.
Hopefully the Vikings have their players all rested up after the bye, and they pack their cold weather clothes, because the next 2 weeks, it's going to be freezing. Christian Ponder has a lot of questions in front of him as far as whether or not he can play in cold weather, and he's going to get tested. Unfortunately, he won't pass the test this week. Chicago gets the win. Vikings drop to 6-5.
Week 13, December 2nd, we have an away game versus the Green Bay Packers. I got another loss coming up from Minnesota. We just do not have the talent on this rebuilding team to stack up against the Green Bay Packers, who I believe are a favorite to reach the Super Bowl this season.
Yeah, sadly the Packers are just too good for the Vikings right now. Hopefully that changes in a year or two with smart drafting and free agency, but for now, it's just too much. At least the cold road trip's over, right? 6-6 heading into week 14.
Which brings us to December 9th, a home game in Week 14 against the Chicago Bears. This is another one of those that I call a coin flip game. It's at home, and depending on how we start and depending on how healthy Jay Cutler is and how well Brandon Marshall has been playing, the Vikings could either be a win or a loss right here. But I'm going to go ahead and say that the Bears are going to outmatch us even though it's at home, and we are going to lose this one.
Yeah, the Bears are going to come into Minnesota and get another win 2 weeks from the last one. I don't really understand why they have it scheduled 2 weeks apart. It's kind of strange for games where you're playing a team 1 week and then skip a week and play them again. That's really odd to me. But I still think, yeah, the Bears are a little too good for now. Vikings drop to 6-7.
Yeah, the scheduling gods are not in our favor for the tail end of the schedule. But thankfully, week number 15, that's December 16th, we have an away game versus the St. Louis Rams, and I believe this will be the Vikings' maybe the final win of the season, in Week 15 against St. Louis, depending on how well Sam Bradford has been playing up to this point in the season.
That's true. Sam Bradford played really well his rookie season, and he's really struggled ever since, and a lot of that can be contributed to that offensive line. Now, if there's one thing you don't want to have when you're up against Minnesota, it's a weak offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Because that Minnesota pass rush is crazy, and the defensive line can plug holes. Vikings win, and they go up to 7-7 on the season.
Yeah, and that'll be a game that Jared Allen and Brian Robeson will have a field day getting to Sam Bradford, hopefully.
They should.
Yeah.
They should.
Week 16, on December 23rd, we have an away game versus the Houston Texans. I have a loss for us right here. We are just outmatched once again by the Texans, who probably are going to make a playoff push this season, and we just don't have the players or the personnel to match up to that caliber of team right now.
Yeah, Houston's just too well-rounded. I've seen a lot of experts actually say that they could see them as being a Super Bowl caliber team this year, and on paper, they definitely could be.
I believe
Whether or not
they will.
they execute it, we'll have to see. I like them, but I don't like them when they play the Vikings because they are going to beat the Vikings. Too much to handle offensively and defensively. Vikings drop to 7-8.
Which brings us to week number 17. Our final game of the season is on December 30th. We're going to close it out with a home game versus the Green Bay Packers. And I am sorry to say we're going to lose this one. Once again, we are outmatched by the Packers. The wild card in this one could be, will they be resting starters? Probably not. They're probably going to be on a little bit of a hot streak going into the postseason. They're probably going to play their starters for most of the game. And we've seen that sometimes, even if they do bench them, we can't stop their backups right now either. So I have a loss for Minnesota to close out the season.
Yeah, I don't think Green Bay is going to be 15-1 again this season. I think there'll be a closer race for the NFC North. But I don't think Green Bay will be resting their starters at all. And that's why I have to go with Green Bay. Like I said earlier, they're just too much for the Vikings team to handle right now. Too many offensive options. They improved their pass rush. They've got too many good guys in the secondary. It's just too much.
Okay.
That leads me into my final season thoughts.
Well, before we get to your final thoughts here, we got to take a look at the big old blackboard in front of us. And I want to know what your final, just to recap here, the final win-loss record that you have for the Vikings for 2012, and we'll just kind of compare it to the one that I have here.
I have the Vikings finishing the season at 7-9.
And that is exactly what I have the Vikings finishing with as well. 7 wins, 9 losses. Now, we had a little bit of discrepancy. A couple teams, you thought we'd beat that I think we would lose. So we're a little different. But ultimately, we came to the final outcome, which is interesting because we didn't sit down and talk about this beforehand. That's just kind of how it worked out.
And before the preseason, I had the Vikings down at 6 wins. I have improved that to 7. I saw a little bit of the offense moving the ball that I liked this preseason. And to me, it showed enough potential and enough development for me to give them that one more extra win. So I feel better about giving them a record of 7-9.
Yeah, me too. I had originally thought that the Vikings were going to win 6 games, which I honestly would have been thrilled with because that would have been double the number that we had last season. But what I bumped it up for the one more win with was when we seen that Jerome Simpson was out on the field, and that offense is clicking on all 8 of its cylinders. They're going full speed. We seen a team that actually looks competent on the field. We also seen that when they come out and they play cold, it could be painful to watch from time to time. But when Jerome and Percy and the rest of the team is playing good, they can at least look competent against some of the better teams. And coming off a 3-win season, that's maybe the best that we should be hoping for in 2012.
Yeah, some of the games that I said were wins, who knows? The Vikings might get blown out of those. And who knows? Some of the games that I said were losses, maybe the Vikings will squeak out a win. That's what's fun about the NFL is that it is any given Sunday. And I love guessing. And I think that I'm going to be close on 7-9. It might be 6-10, but I'm thinking I'm feeling good about my guess.
Yeah, I think I'm probably pretty close to what's going to happen. You never, it's really difficult to guess because any team, no matter how bad they are, can beat any other team on any given Sunday just based on any number of factors that happen in an NFL game. Which brings us to our next segment that we have is the keys for the Minnesota Vikings in 2012. I've got a couple kind of broad statements wrote down. I know Adam has a couple here too. That we think that the Vikings need to do to be a competent team this year. My first one is that we have to start games out strong. I touched on this earlier.
You have.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna beat it to death right now. But my main point is that we can be good if we come out and we look good from the start, but we lack the talent to do any real big come from behind wins. So they need to come out and they need to play strong right from the onset of the game.
But they also need to do something that they didn't do all last season,
What's
and that was finish a game.
Yeah,
Even if they have the lead, they can't just sit on it. They have to stay aggressive. They have to keep scoring some points or moving the ball. They can't just run, punt. It doesn't work that way. You can't just sit on a lead like that.
no, absolutely not. And that brings it into my next key is that we need to play smart football, which is something that we didn't do last season. We cannot have costly interceptions. We can't have fumbles in the red zone. We can't have dumb penalties that negate big plays, either offensively or on special teams. We just have to play smart, sound football where we do not beat ourselves up on the field.
Now, you said one word in there that really scared me, and that was penalties. The Vikings are prone for penalties, and with these replacement referees, it's going to be a whole different story. Who knows what players are going to get away with? There might be more gotten away with in the trench. There might be more bump and run that's given leverage to, but overall, I really don't know what to expect as far as penalties, what's going to be called, and how consistent it's going to be. So that's something for us all to watch too.
On the plus side, I mean, right now, all 32 teams in the NFL have to deal with the same group of replacement officials. So it's not like it's just the Vikings. Every team has the possibility that the refs are just going to completely blow and miss calls right now. So,
Right, they're all going to have to adjust to this.
yeah, exactly. Although I do believe, for as much as you hear Roger Goodell talking about how the NFL wants to put out the best possible product week in and week out on the field, they're going to get this solved, and the regular officials are going to be back sooner rather than later.
I hope so.
My last key for victory I have is that this season is going to be all about finding out what the Vikings have on the roster right now. We need to see young players step up to the plate and either make plays and show that you deserve to be on the team or get out. Like we don't want you. We don't need you moving forward. That's what, we need those young guys to step up and show us what they have.
Yeah, that's what this youth movement is all about. The young draft picks coming in, trying to learn from the older guys, trying to mesh with the team. And right now they're trying to find what sticks. I mean, the Vikings traded for A.J. Jefferson, a corner from the Cardinals, and he might be a good fit. Who knows? Maybe he'll be the guy that they wanted Chris Carr to be.
I was going to say.
But you never know unless you take that chance.
Yeah, I was going to say, he cannot be any worse than what Chris Carr was.
Yeah, we still disagree a bit on Chris Carr. I wish that he played himself out of a job, but we've gone over that several times too.
I mean, I wish Chris Carr would have been the next big thing to step into our defense and help us out, but it didn't happen. So
No.
he's off it now. No sense of harping on it.
Right. Is it time for my final season thoughts now?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yes. All right, the Vikings should be more than pleased if they end up with a record of 7-9. It would show dramatic improvement over last season's record. It would also show that the team is developing and meshing. Sadly, this means that it's going to be a draft pick in the middle of the road, so they'll be missing out on a lot of the top talent. And their aging veterans are only going to be getting a year older. Out on a lot of the top talent. And their aging veterans are only going to be getting a year older. But fans should be pleased with seeing that kind of development after a season like that. Now, all right, and that will do it for our special preview show for the schedule. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. And on behalf of myself and Kyle West, I'd like to remind you, stay classy, Minnesota.